It's so interesting.
It's so interesting.
It's so interesting.
It's interesting.
Welcome to It's So Interesting, where people talk about their work and life experience. I am George Spitzer. Today I'm talking with Henry Rocha.
Right.
The reason I'm speaking with Henry is I'm sitting at his dining room table in his home here in Santa Barbara with his wife, Concepcion, and their niece, Paula Munoz. The reason we're here together is because you told me that you experienced the 1925 Santa Barbara earthquake and that your house fell over.
I was in bed really because it was around 6 o'clock in the morning, the earthquake. I think I mentioned before that I can remember where that earthquake was and how old I was at the time because of what happened. That they were getting me out of the house, which had rolled over in the street.
Where was the street? Where was this
Right
house?
there, the house is right there on the Garden and Haley. And when the earthquake hit, at that time the houses were built on stilts because it's swampland in there at that time. There's quite a bit of swampland. And then what makes me remember this is the firemen were shoving me up toward the ceiling, which actually was the side of the house.
Also, the house not only did it
The
roll
house
over,
rolled over, and what they were shoving me through the attic going, but that was actually the door. But the house had rolled over, and that's what made it look that way.
Now let me understand this. Your house was on stilts? I've never seen a
Well,
house.
they at that time, like I said, that was pretty much swampland. It's always flooded, and the house was built, I'd say on stilts, but actually it was pillars.
How high were the pillars?
Oh, maybe about 5 to 10 feet.
So you could almost park a car underneath that,
Yeah.
right?
Well, you had to go upstairs to get to the first room.
Now, how old were you when the earthquake happened?
I was 3 years old.
And you remember? Is that the first thing you remember?
That's the first thing I remember.
When 1929 came around, that was 4 years after the earthquake. You were then 3. 4 years later means you were 7. And then there was the big market crash, the crash of 1929.
Yeah.
And then within a year, the Depression really started. At your age, were you able to tell something happened like that?
At my age, I didn't know that there was such a thing as depression. Up to this day, we had a yard that was 3/4 of the block deep as the property. And we had orange trees, we had apple trees, we had grapes, we had plums, we had walnuts, we had oranges, we had apricots, had flowers. So we never noticed the depression. I mean, all that stuff was right there in the yard.
Yeah, your food was right in your backyard. You just picked it
Then
off
my
the tree.
grandfather, he used to plow up the space there and plant corn and things like that. We didn't feel the depression very much.
That's good.
My grandmother, my grandfather, my aunts lived in Santa Barbara.
Do you remember when this was? Because
This was around in the late 40s.
late 40s. And that's,
Late 40s, and then,
is that when you met your wife?
no, I met her later.
What? Later?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I have in front of me some photos that I found in one of your photo albums that was amazing. It shows a line, what looks like a lemon crop being processed. And I know that, of course, Goleta at that time was a lot of lemon orchards. So all the lemons that were picked in Goleta were shipped, so to speak, down to downtown Santa Barbara. You worked at the Johnston's Fruit Company. You worked in the area. Basically, everyone there in these packing plants and sorting plants came from the local neighborhood right around it. That plant, the Johnston's sorting plant, was it a major part of the community? I mean,
It was the whole thing.
it was the whole thing.
Actually, here in Goleta or Santa Barbara, you couldn't find a job outside of that packing house. More people from Santa Barbara worked in that packing house. A lot of them are passed away now. That packing house supported a lot of people.
At one plant.
That one plant.
Now, I notice I'm in your house now, and I noticed that you have it painted in lemon yellow. That's kind of unusual because every house in the entire neighborhood is earthen colors, brown and so forth. And then there's this bright lemon yellow house. Now, there's got to be a story to that. Why is that house? Why are you living in a lemon-colored house?
When we moved into the house there on Haley, and the house has survived the earthquake to begin with. All that fell off of that thing was a chimney.
Which house was that?
The one that we moved into there in Haley.
Oh, afterwards, yes, yeah.
The house was built by the sea captain with square nails, and it was painted gray. And I told my mom, I said, if I ever own a house, I'm not going to paint it gray. I'm going to paint a color that you can see.
And when did you say that? What age were you when you said that?
Well, I was still going to school. I was about 12 years old, I think.
So basically you're telling your mother, any color but gray.
Any color but that gray. I couldn't stand seeing the gray, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I figured, if I ever own a house, and this is the house we moved into it.
So it's been a lemon yellow house in this neighborhood for half a century, for 50 years. Obviously you're happily married, but what did your wife think about moving into a yellow house, a lemon yellow house?
She was happy because she used to work in the lemon.
Is that how you met your wife, at the lemon, at the Johnston's lemon factory?
That and the skating rink.
The skating rink?
Yeah.
For ice or for roller skates?
Roller.
And where was that?
That was right there on Chairs, and there's a parking lot there now. Mm-hmm. But there used to be a service station in the corner, and then an alleyway back there, and it was in that alleyway. It's all a road there. We were happy.
I was going to ask you about, you've been in Santa Barbara for your whole life, long life. Why do you like Santa Barbara? It's okay, we just wait.
Why I like Santa Barbara? I could do almost anything I wanted to do, and nobody would say anything.
Well, I would like you to elaborate on that. What did you do?
Well, I mean, right now it's nothing. But at that time it was, being mischievous and everything else. Santa Barbara Junior High School had just opened up when I got there. That's built over a dump, too. And right up the street from there was Coda Street. That was built, that was a dump. The National Guard was a dump. The Boys Club was a dump. It was all a dump, but it was home. I wouldn't do it now. I mean...
What did you do in Santa Barbara that you thought was fun?
I went swimming.
You went swimming?
I spent more time on the beach than in the lifeguard.
Were you a beach bum?
We used to call them rats.
You were a beach rat? Because you were there so much?
Yeah.
And all your friends were there too?
And now here's the funny part about it there. I got to the point where I used to go to the beach every day.
Now, you mentioned that you met Concepcion at the roller skating rink as well as at the lemon plant. Mm-hmm. You courted her for how long did you court her before she agreed to marry? Concepcion just said that it's going to be your 60th anniversary next month. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a healthy run for a marriage. I think this is a great time that we switch seats and ask Concepcion a few questions. Is that okay with you?
That's all right by me.
Okay. Why don't you switch chairs? First off, since you're going to have your 60th anniversary next month, do you remember dating that fellow?
Yes.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the roller skating rink?
Oh, yeah. He showed me how to dance.
Oh.
And,
on roller skates?
on roller skate. We danced together. And it's funny, he's very good in roller skates, but he's not very good dancing. Because when you roller skate, you bend your knees.
Right.
And when you're dancing, you don't do that. So he's very bad.
So you had to help him?
I teach him a little bit, but then we stop because, you don't care for things like that too much. Brothers and my father, they live here in Santa Barbara.
And so your grandparents were living here?
Yeah, my grandparents.
That goes back to 1918. How far back were they here? A long time?
Long time. My grandpa came when he was small. He never come back to Mexico.
So if you added up all your family since the time of your grandparents and your grandparents, were here also. How many people in Santa Barbara
What
now are from your families?
Right now it's close to 60
60 right now living.
living.
And then if you add in all your ancestors here, probably talking 200 or 300 people.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of this was here in downtown Santa Barbara, east side,
Yeah.
around the lemon packing plant and the roller skating rink. Right.
Yeah, we
Okay.
go almost every day to the roller skate,
Okay, and then after the roller skating was over, he went swimming every day.
or every single day. And then that's why, and we married, and he bought a small boat, and we go water ski. Every weekend we water ski, the whole family.
On the ocean.
Her family and our family together.
Okay.
Always together with her family. Even now, I'm always in your mama's house, your grandma.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Concepcion is talking with her niece, Paula, who's on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
And in a few minutes, we'll have Paula come over
Okay.
and tell us what life is like for her. I
Yeah.
almost should say is like for her.
Yeah, I've been here in Santa Barbarena since 1942.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And your parents were here before that, and your grandparents before that.
Before that.
And you like Santa Barbara.
Oh, I love it. I
And
love
why
it.
do you like Santa Barbara?
Well, it's peaceful compared to other places. It's peaceful. You live very calm, you know.
Nobody bothers you?
No, nobody bothers.
Okay.
Unless you bother people.
Yeah, well, of course.
But
So.
yeah.
Well, that's really interesting.
No.
Thank you. I have with me Paula Munoz, same table as with Henry and Concepcion. Paula, I know you're the niece. I met you at Gelson's. I don't know if it was packing lemons or not, but it's not lemons, it would have been tomatoes. But one thing led to another, and I found out how interesting. You've been here your whole life. Your parents are related how to Henry and Concepcion?
Well, my mother's mother is sisters with my Aunt Conception, and she's married to my Uncle Hank.
The reason I ask these questions, and I realize we're talking on a radio show, is because I have a couple of photos here of large crews, almost several dozen people sorting lemons at the Johnston Fruit Company, and you casually mentioned, oh, they're my uncles, my great uncles, my great, you know almost everybody in the picture. It's amazing. Were you aware of these pictures when we found them? Did you know that everybody here is related to somebody?
I saw a couple of familiar faces that I knew were family, and I knew that there was a factory, but I didn't. It's just a small town.
What?
I didn't know it was that small.
Right now, you got the open freeway.
Right.
The 101 used to come up from the bird refuge, come up the street right by the railroad tracks, and then they would turn on Milpa Street.
It was a regular street, right?
It was a regular street. They'd come all the way up to Gutierrez.
Mm-hmm.
From Gutierrez, they would go all the way down to Delavina. From Delavina, it would go all the way up Delavina till you would hit Hollister. And then, though, with a 101. Can you imagine going down Delavina on 101 right now?
The Delavina wouldn't
You
work.
You couldn't get through it. You couldn't get one of these big semis through there.
Well, 101 is now 6 lanes,
Yeah.
and that used to be an ordinary street, two-way street.
And in fact, they used to pass right in front of Connie's house. The highway was right in front of the house.
Traffic lights and everything.
No lights.
No lights.
No lights.
So people just would stop for each other? Just stop
just
signs?
stop for each other.
Oh, my goodness.
But I thought I'd mention that, because a lot of people don't believe it. The highway was coming up Delavina Street, and you can barely get 2 cars in there.
Which means when all these lemons were picked in Goleta, it would come down Hollister, and then it would turn eventually into Delavina, and the trucks would come down through the local residential streets.
Yeah. Come all the way down to Gutierrez Street, from Gutierrez Street all the way down Milpa Street all the way down to Bird Refuge.
Again, I wish you a very happy 60th anniversary next month. I hope you have a nice party.
Thank you.
And thank you.
So interesting.
It's so interesting.
So
It's so
interesting.
interesting.
It's interesting.